I will take every opportunity to sing the praises of the moderator for this panel, the amazing, incomparable Jess Moon, who joined the Adobe XD team about a year ago after having done amazing work growing a UX design team at ServiceNow. We convinced her to come and join us, and she's been just phenomenal. And she's my partner in crime in pretty much all things. And it's just such a pleasure for me to be able to introduce her. And she's someone who gets to the heart of it. There's not gonna be any softball questions here. Jess is someone who I really admire and just loves to get into the mix and get to the heart of matters as quickly as possible, because again, we only have so much time. And so I said I'm super happy to introduce her, and yeah, I'll turn it over to her. Thanks, Preet. Have fun, Jess and crew.
Thank you, Talon. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our session today. Such wonderful words, Talon. Very much appreciate it. Welcome to the subject of leading in uncertain times. Dun, dun, dun. And, with me, I have three wonderful people that I just can't wait to dig into, because we have had some really great conversations around this subject. So there's this normally if it's a conference, right, people would walk on stage, but we don't have that. So we're going to just virtually just turn on stage here. Magic. Yay. Okay, cool. So with me, I have Vincent Ramsay, who is the creative director of Sidley. I also have Laura Müller, who is the head of UX and UI at Lab 1886. And then finally, I have Sajid, who is a UX leadership at Google. So, with each of you, if you could just kind of say a couple of words around, your background and introduce yourselves, that'd be great. Maybe starting with, I'll start with Vincent.
Hi, everyone. I'm the one who created a bit of stress. My computer crashed just during the intro. It's true, I work at Sidley. I'm in Montreal. I work across many offices for Sidley, mainly Montreal, obviously, but Toronto, LA, and now Seattle. We have a new office now in Seattle. A lot of my clients are across the globe. Some in the Bay Area, some in Toronto, as far as Korea. So I know my way around Zoom. So I know how not to panic when it crashes, because I've been on Zoom for the last 3 years, pretty much, with my clients and my team. So very nice to be here.
Awesome. And how about you, Laura?
Yeah, I'm dialing in late from Berlin, Germany. I lead the team at Lab 1886. That's the innovation lab of Daimler. So because we are working in the field of innovation, I'm quite familiar with uncertainty. And my background is, I have an agency background. I've been doing UX since 10 years. It's my passion, and I am looking forward for this panel.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. And Sajid?
Hi, my name is Sajid. I'm a UX manager at Google, and my team is within Google Cloud organization. And our work revolves around keeping Google's data centers operations up and running by building internal tools for our engineers and data scientists. I studied architecture and later diversified into user experience design. In the past, I have worked in various industries, including e-learning, consumer electronics, and enterprise.
Awesome, thank you. And just a quick thing about me as well. So my name is Jess Moon. I am one of the design managers at Adobe, specifically working on XD. So it's super awesome to have everybody here today for us to talk together. All of us as leaders in our respective teams have been faced with quite a new and different thing that I think any of us thought we would sign up for when we decided to, help lead our teams. And before this panel, the four of us had talked a little bit about what do we want to talk about, and I think what became quite apparent was that we just really are all figuring it out, right? And so what we thought would be helpful on this panel, and just to be, super transparent here, much of what we want to share are just a lot of revelations that we've learned, in navigating through these uncertainties. You know, they've caused us to reevaluate how we might approach things, and we've been readjusting accordingly. And so, you know, hopefully in this, as you kind of hear each of these fantastic people talk about the things that they've learned and what they've done to them to address these things. You know, if you have questions in the chat, please feel free to ask them. I'll try my best to kind of catch those and then and bring them into the conversation. This certainly is hopefully, especially because we're remote, we can hopefully have more of a dialogue, you know, not just with the four of us, but with you all who are watching us. And so, yeah. So to start, you know, everyone's got to have a little bit of the origin story here. So like when news finally struck with your team that this was going to be a new world that we're living in, you know, would love to hear from each of you, you know, maybe starting with Laura, you know, what was it like to kind of hear the news and transition, you know, with your team?
Yeah, I still remember that day where we decided, okay, we are all going remote now. This was approximately 7 weeks ago. And we sat late together also with our CEO. And then we said, should we actually close down the office tomorrow? And we have a few offices, but the main office is in Berlin. And then we said, okay, yeah, I think we're actually going to do this. So then we had one day to take our things. And then we all went home, and it felt a little bit weird. Because suddenly, yeah, you were not allowed or supposed to go to the office anymore out of safety reasons, of course. And then we had the first Zoom calls with our team, and it felt I didn't really process so fast what was happening. So I did the Zoom calls like I always do them. So in an efficient way, what's our agenda? What do we have to get through today? And then after 2 or 3 of these, I realized, okay, this is different because there's a difference between working remotely and working remotely in a pandemic. So people had a lot of question marks. And so we took a lot of time then to actually talk about what is on our minds and to take the pace out a little bit, this efficiency. We need to get things done. We need to move forward and more like, okay, do we understand each other? In which situation is everybody in? So it was about adjusting and then understanding and then adjusting again. And I think we are still in this phase now.
Yeah, so it kind of sounds like from the initial meeting, everybody was trying to go business as usual. And then what you realized over a series of these conversations and check-ins was just that we weren't business as usual, right? That must have been very interesting to uncover. You know, in terms of that kind of revelation you mentioned around just that it wasn't about getting that efficiency. You know, what was it that really kind of helped you kind of realize that maybe you shouldn't be just running them as is? Like, was there anything that came out in that specifically?
So once this happened, I started reading a lot about what is actually happening and what also psychologically is happening. There were some great articles out there, and then I realized, okay, it's not only a work situation now, but it's also a private situation that everybody is in. So this I had to get familiar with also for myself, because I also don't know how I will behave in a pandemic, right? So from ignorance to shock to, so everybody deals with it differently. And I think this was the most difficult part, to understand how is everyone dealing with this situation and how is the situation also at home, because some people are alone, some people are with children, some people are with a partner. So it's different for each person. And for that, you have to adjust also a little bit the work schedule, the remote schedule.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sajid, how about you? How was it like, you know, what was it like first hearing about the news? You know, how did that transition go for your team?
Yeah, I think initially when it just started, nobody knew how long it's going to stay, right? So we just kind of normally started working from home, assuming not to last so long. And within a few weeks, reality sets in, and we try to understand that no, this is not normal. This is something different. And some of the work just kept on going as it is, but then some work also started getting either deprioritized or reprioritized, and then we all had to start adjusting. But most importantly, I think it basically turned into an opportunity for we as leaders to show vulnerability at this point, right? Because it was okay to now say that, okay, everyone, there is a level of uncertainty that we all are faced with, and we don't know how to navigate this, and together we are going to figure this out, right? I think that kind of getting to that understanding was very important, and making the team realize that no, this is not normal, so things are going to be different, and everybody will be learning as we go.
Yeah, I mean, that level of kind of resetting a bit of what the expectations are is definitely something that I think all of us were trying to figure out. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Because like everybody responds to this kind of situation differently. Like each individual responds differently, and that's where it was important for us to kind of understand what's going on with everybody, and kind of it was at that point became very important to kind of tell everyone that no, the bar is setting, the bar is lower now. Like the expectations are lower. Like you're not expected to be working and delivering the same thing as you are, because now people are under stress. They have the home to manage. They are adjusting to very different kind of environment, and both psychological and environmental, right? And that's why it was important that, especially on my team, we decided that you can be flexible in terms of your work hours as well. Like you don't have to be like 9 to 5 at work. Like sometimes you have to take care of kids, or you have to do your stuff at home that may require you to be not available for work at certain times. So kind of big setting those expectations, making the team realize that it is okay to kind of not be as productive as you were in the normal situation was an important message to communicate.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. I think about a lot of the early conversations that I had with my own team as we transitioned here, because to Talon's point, we went on a work trip, and then 1 week later we were like basically working from home for the rest of our days. And and the initial one-on-ones that I would have with various folks involved this notion of like people honestly apologizing for not being as productive. And it was, and what you start to realize when you have a series of those conversations is that, as a leader, maybe this is the opportunity to say, wait a second, what is your bar? What is your expectation? We're all kind of living in a different world here, to Laura's point, to your point. And what was the standard there is definitely different. And we all need to recognize that fact. And I think when you have that conversation, it really helps alleviate some of the internal stresses and that we may all have, right?
That's true.
Vincent, so you are, we talked a little bit about how you're a globetrotter and how your team has actually been quite good at doing some of this remoteness. So what was it like with your team?
I think the first 2 weeks were a bit crazy, understanding what work from home was really about. I think a lot of people were thinking that it's like a day at home waiting for the new furniture to come in and then do some work. But now it's more jumping from one Zoom to the other. And that new reality and that new mental fatigue took a few weeks to realize that this was real work. And we could deliver a lot of work. And I think the biggest shift that we had to do is how do we take care of the overall health of our company, not only the person that works at Sidley, but also their kids. One thing that we put in place was Zoom kids activities. So people, we had a creative director who for 30 minutes opened the Zoom for all the kids and tell the story of the Strumpf. Just so that other people in the agency who has kids can maybe have 30 minutes of free time to actually be on Zoom or to work on something. Somebody else threw a dancing session on Zoom, also to have that same liberty or freedom for others. And then we use our own passion. Another creative director did a craft collage activity for kids. And then we realized that we had to take care of everyone part of this. And also it changed the relationship being on Zoom, and I have a daughter, 7 years old daughters, and I was on Zoom with a lot of people, and then I was talking about something, and then she interrupt me and saying, no, that's not really true. That's what happened. So you have to start to deal with, yes, the people that you're on Zoom, but also the people around you that are sharing the same home. I have a dog, then sometimes you start to be loud and all of that. So I think those are the realization that we had to really put into our work stream to really make this situation something that is bearable, but also that we see the opportunity that we have in front of us.
No, for sure. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the dog. You know, you guys may every now and then see my dog just like running behind the scenes. So it's been interesting. You know, the remote work thing. For some people who haven't been able to have a setup at home, you know, they're now kind of showing you their world, right? A bit more of that personal world, and it bleeds. And you know, Laura, we had a really great chat a little bit ago about how, for both of us anyway, and I'm sure for you all as well, you know, we learned more about our team. We learned more about things about our team that we would have never otherwise learned, you know, partly due to the fact that so much of what you see now that you talk to everybody is like part of their lives, right? So, all right. Well, on that
maybe
note,
on that, Jess, I think Sidley is also like we have a lot of clients. Yes, we had to learn from people that we are working with or colleague, but we also learn a lot about our clients. And I think that's also a nice relationship that have been developing within this situation is, yes, we're at home, but they're also at home. So how do we get to know them, know a bit more about their passion, know about their family as well? So I think it's still a great moment to get to know people and develop another side of the human relationship that go beyond work and go beyond this client relationship. And I think this is a great opportunity because if you get along with the people you work with, then the trust is what comes out of those relationships. And that trust allows us to create better work, both on the creative side, but also on how we deliver things. And I think that's a good, strong side of this is if we're closer, then maybe we'll develop stuff that are better. And that have been an interesting also side effect, a positive side effect of working all from home.
You know, that's super interesting what you just mentioned. You said two things there that I just want to kind of dig into a bit further. The first is, you know, for me, you know, our team, we're an in-house team, so we work on, we don't work with public-facing clients per se, but it's interesting that you mentioned, I never thought about the fact that just because, you know, not only is your team remote, but your clients are remote, right? And so it's kind of ironic almost in that, like, even though we're even more distance, right? In a complete opposite way, we're actually more connected now because we have to open these doors that allow us to kind of get to know one another on a deeper level, which I imagine has, to your point, been really, really helpful in terms of bridging those relationships and that trust that you mentioned. And then Laura, I mean, I wonder, is this the same for you as well in terms of the team and your customers?
Yeah, we mainly work internally, so it's not that much the case. Our clients are basically from Daimler itself. And what I wanted to add a little bit is the whole Zoom culture that is now establishing. And there are all these tips to have coffee dates, to have like children activity. And I think these are all pretty great. But at the same time, I realized that every meeting is also some kind of stress during the day, especially when you have people working with kids. So every meeting is, you need to prepare it somehow. You need to make sure maybe the kids are entertained, so on, that the internet connection as well, if you are somebody, if you are somewhere else. So the meetings for me have to be planned in a very conscious way. And it has to be clear which meetings are mandatory and which ones are optional, so that people are not like, when somebody offers a creative thing, I love it very much, but it has to be clear that it's an optional thing for to join, and it's not, it doesn't add another level of stress. So and this is what I mean by adjusting to the team's situation, that you can offer this, but at the same time it must feel very, very optional. One thing, and then it has to be clear, okay, some meetings are mandatory. I usually put it in when I do the invite, mandatory, so just that it's clear, because there are so many meetings now that people still need to work, right? So you still need to work on your own, you still need to get creative somehow, so on. And I mean, it's the normal thing also when we work in an office, that we get distracted by meetings. And now, like, I feel like these Zoom meetings become sometimes so much that you don't get to do anything else. So I think there has to be some kind of level to put in which Zoom meetings are important or not.
Right.
Yeah, this is just one learning from the last 7 weeks.
Yeah, no, definitely. Sajid, it sounds like you want to maybe say something?
Yeah, I mean, what has happened is all those corridor conversations that we used to have now turned into meetings, and that's kind of filling up people's calendars, because earlier you would just walk over to somebody's desk and talk and get some opinion or have a chit chat about something. Now that opportunity is not there, so people are trying to grab each other's time as much as they can to connect, and that is kind of creating that meeting creep on our calendars. And as everyone else also said, like it's become important for us to realize maybe you need to like set the standards about when you're setting the meeting. Okay, is it for everybody, or is it just for a few required people and everybody else is just FYI, or whatever it is, so that people can make the right decision which ones to join and which ones to not. So I think that's again the other side of working remotely is we want more and more face time with each other, and the best way we can do that right now is through meetings. So it's kind of even though we were expecting that work from home might become much more easier, but it's on the other side, I think a lot of meetings are now happening which earlier were not happening.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think, two things here. One is the fact that when there's a lot of social stuff, so Vincent had mentioned the kid social, basically, right? Like actually in the Adobe design team, we had a puppy or a pet social recently too, where people could bring their animals. And so, it's really important that like there's going to be an increase of trying to fill the social void, right? And so if this happens, making sure that people realize it's not mandatory, and people feeling like they can come to it like they would like any happy hour, right? Like where they're not required to by any means, is definitely important, and being very clear on what meetings they should attend, right? I don't know about you guys, but one thing that I recently realized is I always joke about how my calendar is kind of like playing Tetris, where like you kind of have to like shove the meetings in. And now that we're remote, there's like more meetings. And what I caught myself doing was that when I was thinking ahead, I started to play Tetris with like the forward week, where I started just like say, well, that spot's open, I'm just gonna put a meeting there. When in fact, it's not necessary to go so soon and like stack it out like compactly, right? You can actually let some of that breathe. And I think the more we're able to like self-manage when we talk to people and how much we talk to people, we can create that space that you mentioned, Sajid.
Yeah. One other thing is like meetings, when they become back to back and from home, you don't get up from your seat. Like in office, you at least walk from one meeting room to the other meeting room. Now you don't. You just sit in this chair and just take meetings after meetings. So maybe even like keeping like a 5 minutes gap, or ending meetings 5 minutes early or starting them 5 minutes late, at least give people opportunity to at least walk around the house or go up and down the stair at least, and get their body moving.
For sure. Actually, this makes me think of a thing, Vincent, that we had chatted about a little bit around rituals and creativity. Maybe you can talk a little bit about some of your new learnings there.
Yeah, I think part of the creative process is also to get lost in your ideas, take time to look at the work and really reflect on it and see if it's good or not. I think sometimes when we are on Zoom, we see things and we react very fast to stuff. And where we had this open space at work, we put stuff on the wall, and then by walking by a few times, you're like, oh, this is interesting. Maybe not so much for this one. So that's one thing, but also to realize those moments where you were alone in thinking. And I think and for me, it was a lot by commute, either commuting from Montreal to LA or from my home to the office. But that 30 minutes or that 3-hour flight is a time to be by yourself and think. And now we don't have that. I go to work from my bedroom to my dining room, and that's a like 10-second walk, and that is not long enough to think about. And that time of thinking is very important. And we all have those personal rituals that gets you into the work, what get you into the focus zone. And being distracted by Zoom is certainly not the best way to do that. So you need to plan for those and be like, okay, I have 3 hours this morning where I get lost into my own work. Maybe go work in your background if you have that space, or take a walk. Get lost in your city. Maybe there's something to rediscover within your city. And a lot of people have been talking about that at work, is like, we're confined in a short area, but there's so much to discover within this area. And it feels like we're on vacation a little bit, like we're discovering a new city. And those are the good way to get back to those creative ideas. Take time to read, open a book for half an hour and see if there's an idea that arises from maybe a portion of a story. And that time took a bit of time to realize that. And now that we are 7 weeks in, some of the people are really realizing that, and they start to refuse meeting. No, I'm on something. I don't want to be distracted by this. And I think it's a good thing as creative to realize how you work so that you can replicate it. Some of the most experienced creative at Sidley, and I'm sure it's true elsewhere, they have their own rituals where they know how to do things to get to the success of what they do. Now all this is shift, and there's a time to think about that and see if we need to go beyond the 8, or maybe let's say a full other months. We need to find those creative process within our new environment, so that we deliver the same quality of work that we're used to in the other way. So I think that's a very different and fun way to look at how our notion of time and space have reshifted on work.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I definitely, a lot of what you say there really resonates. Rituals are interesting because you don't realize they're rituals after a while, right? You kind of get into the flow, and then they become just like breathing. And, a lot of the points you bring up are super valid. And, one thing I've started to do with some folks on my team is like ask them about what's missing, whether it be a ritual or whether it be, like what is the thing that they were doing, and when we first responded several weeks ago, it was like everyone was available all the time, trying to do everything. And I think we're now kind of at a point where we're seeing with our teams that, wait a second, how do I become most effective as like my original like role, right? And how do I become creative, and how do I, readjust my ways to do such? And that's becoming a more of a learning thing. It's great to see the teams, right? Like start to say like, oh, okay,
Yep.
Need to reset here, need to figure it out, right?
Our role as leader is to understand those new process.
Yes.
You know your team, and you know that maybe somebody needs like a day to think about stuff. Some are like shorter, and we need to realign on their new process so that we better take their talent to the group effort. So that's our role, to really understand and be and listen to how they react to the situation and how are they adjusting to this, so that they feel that their input is valuable as well. Because I think that's now that we're all remote, it's hard to feel if my work is valuable to the group. So we need to listen to those small details to make sure that we collaborate in a more efficient way during this time.
Absolutely. Yes. Actually, that kind of reminds me, Sajid, we've been talking a little bit about the projects that your team had been having in flight. And then this happened. And then,
Correct.
some of them seemed like maybe they should be canceled or paused. And maybe you could talk a little bit about what that journey was like.
I mean, that was especially one instance where we had a workshop planned for UX research and design team members to conduct with our stakeholders. And it was supposed to be an in-person workshop. And then this thing happened, and we had to, there was a discussion like, oh, we can't meet people, so how are we going to do it? And the question was, okay, let's probably kill it for now until things get better. But then the researcher and the designer came up with this proposal, like, let's do virtual workshop. I mean, we can always try. We have done small ones, but not a big one, like a whole day-long one. So they came up with a nice proposal, and we said, yeah, I mean, what's wrong in it? All we might end up with is we might fail. It may not go well. But there's no harm in trying. And then we ended up actually conducting that workshop, and it went really well. And we actually got what we were seeking from that workshop. So I think people are already trying to get really creative in how they're reimagining how we work today in this situation, right? So it's also about like exploring all these possibilities of remote work and sharing ideas. And one good thing at Google especially is that there is a huge community that we all rely on to each other for like sharing ideas and learnings from each other. That really helps us kind of experiment a lot of different things. Like suddenly you will know, oh, we were not the only ones who did remote workshop. There were like 5 other teams who tried that. And then that would be like a great place to share ideas and learn from each other. So I think more and more such creativity, because we are all kind of creative. So it's very natural that we would look at creative ways of solving our problems as we are being handled.
Yeah,
Sure.
I would like to add something here as well, because this uncertain times and budget cutbacks, we faced this as well.
Yep.
And then suddenly a group of 15 to 20 people was not in their project anymore because it was stopped and it was uncertain when this project will continue.
Yeah.
And then we thought, okay, we as leaders, what can we do now? And we came up pretty quickly with an initiative for social responsibility projects. And then the team that was basically on pause to keep them motivated. This was one reason. And the other was that a lot of people that work at the lab are generally interested in social responsibility projects. So we could pitch them internally, and then we split up into 5 groups, and each worked on a different topic, helping design against Corona, basically. And this was helping us a little bit to solve this situation, because of course, when you are very passionate about a project and then suddenly it's paused, it's not good news, and it's very hard to keep the motivation going. But then if it's something that people like to work on, then it can go into the right direction. And I mean, it will continue sooner or later. It's just not clear when. And I think also to deal with these bad news and then and not knowing exactly what the new deadline is, and then filling this up with something you can really learn something and thrive in a creative way. This was a good solution in that sense. Yeah.
For sure. And I think that what you brought up really illustrates not only the fact that people, not everything's like, let's all improve all the things, right? Like the reality is that some of the things that we wanted to work on or that we wanted to improve upon, they can't happen, right? And so with that, how do you, when things are tough, like how do you refocus the team's energy in a positive way, right? And that's definitely critical in this time. It actually kind of like, I'm looking at one of the questions. So David had actually brought up this question. I think it's highly relevant to what you just mentioned, Laura, which is, his question is, since we've all started working from home, how is the way you measure people's output, outcomes or contributions change, which is something we've chatted a bit about, and then his second question was, do you, as leaders get concerned when people go quiet for a few days, or maybe like ghost on Slack, and if so, like, especially if they may be hyper-focused on the project or working at hand. Curious what you guys think as with David's question there.
I can start on this. I think even before COVID, one of the way I try to evaluate the input or the output of any colleague is the level of engagement. When they present their work, how engaged are they and how much they believe in the idea and whatever they're presenting. Sometimes in creativity, you can get lost and it takes you 3 days to find the idea. But if after 3 days you come up with this idea and you really believe in it, I think it was a valuable output. If you spend 5 minutes and then you come back with something, but you don't really believe in it, that 5 minutes is still not valuable. So I try as much as possible to really connect on the human side when they present the work, and I look at how they present and how much they believe in it. So obviously we always look at the output. Do we think it's good work? But in creativity, for me, it's so critical to take that engagement level as much as the idea. Because in the end, if we want to produce great work, we need those creative to be passionate about the project, to make sure they will have all the details and make sure it works. So that will be my answer to the first half of David's question. Obviously, and I don't think it really happened so far that somebody have ghosted that much. But maybe so far what I've been doing is create those coffee virtual that or meetings about life and not about work. Like what other series they're watching, what really interested them during the weekend, so that I have the human side as well. Or just add that to a meeting with few people so that you get a better sense of how are they doing. And if they ghost and you feel that they were already like good and their level of energy was good, then it's good. If you feel that prior to other meeting, you felt that their energy was low, then this is when I would be concerned a little bit.
Yeah. For us, I think some of the things that we did in our time specifically around like Slack presence, because the XD team, the design team anyway, is had before this been already cross geo, right? A bunch across the time zones as well. Like we had people in India and Romania in addition to like New York and San Francisco, right? And so asynchronous conversation was actually quite common in our team. But one thing we did do at that time that's even become more relevant now is like we have like virtual stand-ups where people respond to a stand-up channel and they kind of talk about what they're working on. And that kind of shows you the output, right? But what was interesting is we added in like a little bit of like a fun factor where we asked people like, what's something new you learned about as you're working remote, or like, what's a tip you can give people? And people shared a lot of like cooking accidents and such. But, that was really one great way of us trying to keep people visible in Slack, is just for them to pop up once in a while. And then the other thing I'll just say is, I've noticed in the Slack community for us anyway, people are always reading, they're not necessarily speaking. And so we have a water cooler channel where the more kind of boisterous people are like sharing interesting, fun things. But what's always relevant and I've noticed is interesting in our team is that there are always still people like looking at it and responding in emojis, or when I have a one-on-one with them, they're like, oh yeah, I saw that thing that blah, blah, blah did. And it was super cool. So there's that level of invisible engagement you kind of got to tease out from the team a bit to kind of see where they're at. Sajid, were you going to say something?
No, I was just looking at the question and trying to understand, about, especially in terms of measuring people's outcome and performance, I would say that's not a priority at this moment, because you don't want to put one more additional burden of people worrying about how are they getting evaluated in this time, because there are already other important things for them to take care of. So I would say that, as again, this goes back to the thing that I talked about setting the bar low, which saying like, okay, right now we shouldn't be focusing on evaluating and measuring performances, but
Yeah.
thinking about physical and mental well-being and making sure everybody is has is able to perform efficiently as efficiently as they can.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, personal health is critical, right? And Laura, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I think for this also, I mean, you have to establish trust within your team, right? I think this is very important. And in our team, this trust was established before. So when somebody has a bad day, they can say it and then it's fine. Then you can just leave her or him alone for a while, right? And I think now with the established trust, it's much easier also in this situation, because if somebody really goes quiet for a while, then we can ask. I mean, we also have like a WhatsApp group where we exchange, and so nobody is really quiet for a very long time. This would also alarm me if this would happen. And also for the work results, if somebody really doesn't get things done as they should, then I trust the team to come and tell me, and then we can find a solution together. And I think this is a key thing that should have been established way before the remote and the pandemic situation.
For sure. Yeah. And actually, this relates to a couple of the questions that are emerging as well, which is around the notion of the balance, right? So going off screen when the office is your room versus how to overcome that challenge of always being on versus like having moments of rest. And, you know, prioritizing and messaging and really kind of talking about the importance of personal health and well-being is definitely critical, Sajid, to your point. And one quick note I'll mention before turning into this group is as it relates to rest, right? Like I find that when I talk to folks on my team, they're asking for permission. And, you know, I think we have an opportunity here, right? To just kind of say, go do you, right? Like you need to take time, you know, you don't need to necessarily like request it in that way, right? Like just say that you need time and then just go do your thing. And as long as, you know, we keep saying that to our team, hopefully they don't feel like they're becoming what I think I hear with my team is like maybe being a burden or like, you know, like it being unnecessary. And again, that expectation thing, right? So for you all, you know, is there anything you want to add in terms of how to manage that balance of like being on versus like having that rest?
Yeah, I think one thing that we put in place was breaks, mandatory breaks, one in the morning,
Yes.
one in the afternoon. Maybe having this idea of being working at a fast food chain where you need your 30 minutes half day.
Yeah, yeah.
So we had that in everybody's calendar. So it's a spot where you cannot book or hopefully you cannot book over meeting, or if you want to have a meeting, you need to ask first, is that okay that we use that time to speak about something? And I think everybody respect when people say, no, I need that break because I need to do X and Y or just to rest. And we try to reinforce as much as possible the working hours. I think that comes from the leadership more like so Montreal is 9 to 5. Then let's not try to have meetings outside of that, so that people can have their family time. Same with the weekends. So those are the rules that we put in place really to do that. And we try to put some of the administrative task into the mix and have the culture be part of those admin tasks. Like every day we have a DJ, internal DJ that for 30 minutes
That's awesome.
get a good mix of songs so that people can do their timesheets all together.
Very cool.
So bringing the culture also part of that work from home time. So I think that's how we try to balance. It's not perfect. Obviously, we're still learning as everyone else, but early on we put those in place so that we capture that.
Yeah. Also, what we try to do is keep a Friday no meeting day, like a design studio time day, and we block our entire calendar with one big meeting.
Yep.
People still don't sometimes respect that. You would see meetings popping up on top of that, but at least it cuts down the meetings by at least 60 to 70% for me, at least. So I get kind of time that I need for, because I kind of block it out like in bulk. And that kind of helps the team also get some breathing time where they could just, like, nobody is expecting them to be in meetings. We can have like heads down time to just do the work. It kind of is been working, not at 100% effectively, but it's been effective.
Lucky you, it's tomorrow for you, so that's a. I'm sure you're looking forward.
I still have some meetings tomorrow.
No, us too. We actually picked Friday for that reason, partly because of the time zones, actually, because of the fact that like it's still Friday for us, but it's not. It's Saturday for other people, and that's always a pain, right? Having a meeting on the Friday night for other people. So yeah.
Yes.
Cool. We only have a couple minutes remaining. Time super flies when you're talking about uncertainty, huh? Maybe, and there's been some great questions from the audience. If you have some more, feel free to throw them our way. One thing just kind of for maybe each of you is to share is, what is your top of mind now that we're kind of week 7 in, like where's your head at? What are you thinking about? Maybe we go Vincent, then Laura, then Sajid.
Sure. Aside of vacation, I think what my mind is at is trying to find the opportunities within this situation. There's a time like these, I think there's stuff that was in back of my mind, ideas that I thought it was a great idea or not. Now that I have more time, or this context maybe is a good time for those ideas. And look on the bright side of what's happening. I think it's always a good thing to do. See the glass half full instead of half empty. For me is a good mindset. And I think we all look for time in our schedule. That's part of what we do when you work. And now that's pretty much what we got from this situation a little bit. Maybe it's a own vacation, but it's still time. So for me, that would be the element.
Got it. Okay. And Laura, how about you?
For me, it's a good way to see, also for the team, what can happen remotely and what is better in person, because now we can really test it out, and some things are going really well, and other things I just love to be in a room with the people, especially during ideation sessions. I know there are great tools out there, and we tried ideating also, but some things are just better in person, and this is a big learning. And another thing is, how much do you really need to travel? Because also we at Lab 1886, we have to travel a lot. Some of us travel 3-4 days a week. And is this really necessary? And I hope that this will change a little bit, that you have more awareness about traveling. And then I'm really, soon our office will probably open again, and I'm really curious what is going to happen, also to share the learnings with the others, and maybe it will start a future work movement now. I think this is a great chance for us all, and to really analyze and learn from it and do it better. I agree with Vincent. We can learn a lot and improve on this.
For sure. Sajid?
I think for me, it's mostly we all are like unaware how long is this going to last. So at this moment, it's really about maintaining, making sure that the team continuously feels motivated and stay excited about this work from home criteria that we have to face with, and how can we continue delivering the expectations that we are setting, even though I did mention we setting them low, but we still have some expectations and we need to deliver. How do we continue to do that in a situation where there is so much unknown at hand right now, right? So I agree, like apart from other things, like we are all thinking about how the future of work looks like, how working from remotely, future of work from remote working looks like, etc. And on the human side, it's more about how do we all kind of adopt and accept this change, the reality that has been brought to us.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's kind of funny, right? The situation. We're all designers here, and we love our constraints, and we kind of have a new one on us, which is
Yeah.
what is with this constraint of being remote. Like, how can we find new opportunities to innovate and make great things happen? And it's no better profession than us to kind of think about that. I think so. Super fun. And it's definitely great to know that there's a shared uncertainty and a shared kind of constant learning journey that we're all on. It's, for me anyway, as a leader, you know, it's always reassuring to hear you guys talk about it, and makes me remember, like, okay, cool, not everyone has this quite figured out, but we're all responding in really great and innovative ways. And that's been just awesome to hear. So okay, well, we're at top of the hour. And so that's pretty much all for us. Thank you, everybody who took the time to listen in on our talk. And thank you to you three lovely folks who have been able to share so much of your wonderful experiences with us. We've learned so much. So with that, thank you. And I'll turn it back to Talon. And
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Jess.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jess, and everyone else on the panel. That was incredible.
It's great seeing them be so open, right, about
Yes.
their teams and their processes. I mean, that's what's really been sort of, I guess, kind of, you know, just humbling, is that everyone being so willing and being open right now and supporting each other. You know, because we're only going to make this through it together. So
I know, absolutely, Talon. Couldn't have summed it better.